And with us now is Peter Svab, investigative reporter for the Epoch Times, with context on former FBI Director James Comey's arraignment. So, Peter, thank you for joining us. Can you talk to us about, in very specific detail, the alleged actions that Comey is being charged for?
Right. So the indictment is actually very brief and a bit vague about what specifically happened there. It says that Comey lied to Congress about authorizing people to talk to the media about an investigation of person one. Well, it doesn't say who the person one is, and that he actually authorized person three. It doesn't say who person three is. And Comey's lawyers themselves said that they don't even know who person one and person three are. So there's some reporting on that. That person one is actually Hillary Clinton, and person three is Daniel Richmond, who is a friend of Comey, a law professor, who was appointed by Comey, a special government employee working with the FBI from 2015 to early 2017. So those are the alleged facts. The details are really unclear.
So, can you explain for us what is Crossfire Hurricane? Can you give us as much information on that as you can?
Right. So the Crossfire Hurricane was the FBI investigation of supposed links between the Trump campaign in 2016 and the Russian government, prompted by release of information stolen from the Democratic Party by WikiLeaks. Uh, so that investigation then morphed into a kind of sprawling investigation of Trump himself, of many people in his orbit. And the investigation itself has been multiple times investigated, and there have been a lot of errors, a lot of violations actually found in how the investigation itself was conducted. So Comey was the director of the FBI until almost mid 2017. So he oversaw that investigation for almost a year.
Okay, so Peter, on Comey's indictment, some commentators are framing this as, accountability for Comey undermining Trump's first presidency. Is it though?
Well, that's a little tricky, right? Because it seems that the indictment is talking about lying to Congress about what Comey did or didn't do regarding the Clinton investigation. If the reporting about person one being Hillary Clinton is accurate, so in that case, it would have very little, if anything, to do with the Trump-Russia investigation and whatever went wrong there. So from that perspective, it's not exactly accountability. It's more like they looked into his actions and found this to be prosecutable.
Do you think potentially maybe others could be also indicted? What do you think on this?
Well, theoretically, there were other people within FBI who were uh, talking to Congress. There are questions about whether what they said was accurate. A lot of the stuff is already out of the statute of limitations, so uh, it would be quite difficult. Basically, the government would have to kind of step up. The Department of Justice would have to step up to more serious charges, espionage charges. They would have to come up with evidence that somebody improperly leaked classified information to the media, for example. There is some evidence of that happening. There have been investigations, internal investigations within the FBI to determine, who leaked this classified information that pertained to, uh, the Trump-Russia investigation. But the investigation kind of fizzled out, saying, well, we don't exactly know who exactly leaked what, and because we cannot pin down the specifics, we cannot really charge anybody. So that's an indication, unless that investigation, that internal investigation, was botched intentionally, and the current FBI would do it again, in some more thorough manner. There's a little chance of further indictments.
Well, okay, Peter, I think we can leave the conversation there for now. President Trump is speaking at the White House, so we're going to tune into that. Thank you, Peter. All right, President Trump welcomes leaders from Finland at the White House. Let's see what's happening.
It's closed.
It's closed.
And that's because you have so many Russians trying to get in?
Yes, they started to push illegal migrants to our border. That's why we were forced to close it.
And people also that don't want to go into the military, I guess, trying to come through, right?
Yeah, some of them are escaping. Fortunately, on our side, we don't have that problem. In Finland,
No, you have a great military.
We have compulsory military service, and as I always say, we have 900,000 men and women who've done it, including myself and the Prime Minister. We have 200.
And you've been fighting Russia for a long time. So how many years have you been indirectly fighting Russia?
Well, put it
From
this
that.
way, we have managed our relationship since the 1300s with about 30 skirmishes, but it's been very peaceful at our border after World War II.
1300s.
Yeah, but it's been peaceful at our border since the Winter War and the War of Continuation. But, I mean, a lot of it is because we actually have a very large military. It's the biggest in Europe together with Turkey, Ukraine and Poland. We have over 60 F-18s. We just bought 64 F-35s. We'll roll out the first one in Texas in December. We have the biggest artillery in Europe together with Poland. And as I always say, we don't have it because we're worried about Stockholm.
Well, you really have proportionately, I think, the largest military in the world, proportionately.
It's quite big, yes, I have to admit. But, we have it for defense purposes and also to build a deterrence. And it's worked, and I think that's one of the reasons that our relationship is so good as well. We have the Defense Cooperation Agreement with you. Right. We're new allies in NATO. Our defense expenditure is going north of 3%. We work very closely with you and the rest of our allies. And when you push the ceiling of defense expenditure in NATO to 5%, you can imagine that a country like Finland was quite pleased with that, because that means that all of the allies have to bring up their defense expenditure, and you basically increased our security just with that decision in The Hague. And I have to admit that, having been to my first NATO summit in the summer of 2024, if someone would have told me that you will move from 2% to 5% after Trump enters, I would have said, go see a doctor. But
well, you had to do it, and you were great about it. Spain has not been. Spain is the one that didn't do it. And so I think you people are going to have to start speaking to Spain. The only one that didn't do it, the only NATO country that didn't do it is Spain. And you'll figure what that's all about, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll work, and I think with the leadership also of Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO. I think, there are a lot of commitments that have to take place, and this, of course, is going to also increase industrial defense exchanges. I think we buy 4 times more military material here from the US, and I think it's an essential part of our whole military setup in Europe. And it's good to be working on this together. But there's one thing that I wanted to mention also. I want to congratulate you for what we have seen in the past 24 hours in Gaza.
Thank you.
I think it's a historic deal. I went through the 20 points. It's almost like the best of record. You really see all the key elements. And if someone would have said a few weeks back that you and your team are able to push us to a position where there will be a ceasefire, an exchange of prisoners, hostages, and then a pullback, I would not have believed it. But this is what diplomacy is at its best, and I think it's a potentially huge deal. So congratulations to you and your team.
Peace in the Middle East. Yes,
Peace in the Middle East, yeah.
And every country came together. Every single country came together, and people are shocked by it. But it's an amazing situation. Nobody thought it was going to happen. Thank you very much, and you've been of help too. You help always, but we are really working more closely together, having to do with Russia, Ukraine.
Yeah.
And I would have thought that would have been easier, because that would be number 8 for me, number 8. And I would have thought the Russia deal maybe would have been one of the easier ones. And unfortunately, last week they had over 7,000 soldiers die unnecessarily. So it's a terrible thing, but I think we'll be getting there hopefully soon.
Yeah, and probably we'll go, or you will be going piece by piece. There are only so many agreements that you can get done, and I think this one will be the next big one. Of course, this one needs to stick, and I'm sure it will, because the incentives are all there, and then we'll continue to work. The last time I was here in the Oval Office was with the other European leaders in August, and I think we did a lot of good advancement there on security arrangements. I think you pushed us Europeans hard not to buy oil and gas from Russia, which I think is a very correct decision. Europe just put down its 19th sanctions package. I think Russia is actually right now, both economically and militarily, not in a very strong place. And I think it's because of the commitments that we've made to Ukraine. So, day by day on this one.
We're going to get it worked out.
And welcome back. We're going to continue tuning into President Trump speaking with leaders from Finland at the White House. Take a look.
Solved the wars, one going for 31 years, one going 34 years, one going 35 years, one going 10 years. I made 7 deals. This would be number 8. The one I thought that I was going to make, and I think we will probably, is because it's a ridiculous war. It's a horrible war. The worst since World War II. If you look at the people doing is Russia, Ukraine. I think we'll do that too. We've a lot of reasons for them to do it, and I think they'll be coming to the table pretty soon. But this is the biggest of them all. This is a big one. Although I think India and Pakistan is very big. 2 nuclear nations. I did that based on trade and because of the tariffs. If we didn't have tariffs, you wouldn't have been able to do it. But I said, if you guys are going to fight, I'm putting 100% tariffs on each of you. And they immediately stopped fighting. And that was going to go nuclear. That was back and forth. So I know one thing. I don't know what they're going to do, really. But I know this, that nobody in history has solved 8 wars in a period of 9 months. And I've stopped 8 wars. So that's never happened before. But they'll have to do what they do. Whatever they do is fine. I know this. I didn't do it for that. I did it because I saved a lot of lives. And that's the thing that bothers me so much about the Russia-Ukraine. 7,000 people are dying a week. Young soldiers. They're almost all soldiers of Ukraine and Russia. So in theory, it doesn't affect us, no, but it's a terrible thing. And we'll get that solved too. But nobody has ever done 8 wars. Nobody's done 8 wars in 30 years, let alone 9 months.
Are you going to step up the pressure? Are you going to step up the pressure for a Ukraine deal?
Yeah, we are stepping up the pressure. We're stepping it up together. We're all stepping it up. NATO's been great. The leader of NATO, as you know, Mark, has been fantastic, I think. And he's a fantastic guy. And they are stepping it up. And we're selling a lot of weapons to NATO. And that's going, I guess, to Ukraine for the most part. That's up to them. But they're buying weapons from the U.S. We make the greatest weapons in the world. You buy our planes and a lot of our equipment. And you have a big force, actually. You have a tremendous force of equipment. So I think we'll get that one done too, yeah.
President Obama got it for way less.
I want to finish, maybe.
Mr. President, Mr. I'm from Finland. Mr. President, I'm from Finland.
Is he okay?
Yeah. Am I okay?
He's all right.
You look great. Go ahead.
President, you're buying icebreakers from Finland.
Yeah.
But what if Russia and Vladimir Putin attacks Finland? Would you defend Finland?
I would. Yes, I would. They're a member of NATO. I would. They're great people, but I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he's going to do that. I think the chances of that are very, very small. But it's very interesting because you have a very big military relative to your size. You have a very powerful military, one of the best. And but certainly we will be there to help.
Thank you.
Mr. President. Okay, please.
Mr. President, thank you. We have a bit order, as our president said. How would you exactly defend Finland? And yeah, thank you.
Say what?
How would you defend Finland?
Vigorously.
Can I just add on that? We're very pleased with the fact that we have so much training going on with American soldiers right now, so they're getting experience from Arctic conditions, and we're integrating our militaries together, working not only through the DCA agreement, but other ways as well. We see that day to day in the work that we do, and it's working well.
Okay? Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you.
Where are you from?
I'm from Finland too.
Only Finns here.
You have a lot of.
Yeah, a lot of Finns.
It's
No?
very impressive.
So, Mr.
I like them
President,
better than our reporters.
So, how do you see the situation in the Arctic developing? Are there going to be any mutual plans for Finland and U.S.?
Well, we will. I mean, we have a lot of relationships together. I mean, mostly buying our military equipment. They buy a lot of it. They have an order, I guess, 60 planes, 64 F-35s, and many other things too. It's a big order. Big countries don't order that many planes. You know, it's
10 billion.
You have a lot of aircraft, a lot of great military. We make the best military equipment. They buy a lot from us, so it's very good. We're going to work together very closely with Finland and with NATO. We have a very good relationship. As you know, I requested that they pay 5%, not 2%, and most people thought that was not going to happen, and it happened virtually unanimously. We had one laggard. It was Spain. Spain. You have to call them and find why are they a laggard, and they're doing well too. You know, the funny thing, because of a lot of the things we've done, they're doing fine. They have no excuse not to do this, but that's all right. Maybe you should throw them out of NATO, frankly. Please, go ahead.
What are you planning to do with
Tall
that?
gentleman, nice tall gentleman, go ahead with the yellow shirt.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to change gears just really quickly and ask you, you're going to Walter Reed tomorrow? What are you having done, and how are you feeling?
I'm meeting with the troops, and I'm also going to do a sort of semi-annual physical, which I do, and I think I'm in great shape, but I'll let you know. But I have no difficulty thus far. Is there wood around here? I'm not going. No difficulty. Physically, I feel very good. Mentally, I feel very good. You know, I did about 6-7 months ago. I do physicals. I like to, when I'm around, I like to check always early. Always be early. It's a lesson for a lot of people. But I also did a cognitive exam, which is always very risky because if I didn't do well, you'd be the first to be blaring it. And I had a perfect score. And one of the doctors said he's almost never seen a perfect score. I had a perfect score. I got the highest score, and that made me feel good. When they asked, would I like to do one, I said, yeah. I said, did Obama do it? No. Did Bush do it? No. Did Biden do it? I definitely did. Biden wouldn't have gotten the first 3 questions right. No, Biden didn't do it. Biden should have done it. I'm actually a person that believes that if you're president, you should do a cognitive exam. But last time I took a cognitive exam, and it was a perfect score. The doctors announced it. And by the way, not the easiest test. The first few questions are pretty easy. Once you get into the middle, it gets a little trickier. And there aren't a lot of people in this room that would get every single question right, I can guarantee you.
You're putting me in a difficult spot now. Next question.
Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize for way less than you did, and President Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize for way less.
For doing nothing.
Exactly.
Obama got a prize. He didn't even know what he got. He got elected, and they gave it to Obama for doing absolutely nothing but destroying our country. No, he was not a good president. The worst president was Sleepy Joe Biden, but Obama was not a good president.
Are you going to do something with the
They gave him a prize. How many months after he won the election, then they gave him the Peace Prize, right?
It was right after he was elected.
My election was a much more important election.
Now that you're fixing the situation between Hamas and Israel, are you going to be taking care of the Hezbollah or the Lebanese armed forces to take care of the Hezbollah?
Yeah, we'll be able to do that. That will be, it's a smaller part of the puzzle, but very important part. They have a great new ambassador that I appointed, Michelle. Great new ambassador. So yeah, please.
Saying that the hostages will be released on Monday or Tuesday. What's your strict deadline? When do they have to get released?
Well,
and how do you make sure each party abides by it?
It's going to be around that time. Yeah, they're working on it very hard. They're in very diverse parts of the earth. Okay, they're very, very diverse. Actually, it's I think they're going to come through. I'd be surprised if they didn't. I think it'll happen.
Mr. President.
In the back.
Thank you, sir. The 19th point of the 20-point plan said that in the future there could be conditions in which the Palestinians might eventually get a state. Under what conditions do you think the Palestinians
Well,
could
we'll
have a
look
state
at it
in
at the
future?
time. We're going to see how it all goes. And, there's a point at which we may do something that would be a little bit different and may be very positive for everybody. But we'll be looking at that at the time.
Mr. President.
And I think we'll get to that. I think we'll get to that period, too. Yeah, please.
Mr. President.
Yeah, please, Blanchard.
Thank you. Mr. President, the United States has previously said that that Europe would have to take more responsibility for its own security. Are you or the U.S. planning to withdraw some of the U.S. forces from the European soil?
No, but we may move some around a little bit. I'd ask you that question, Pete. Go ahead.
I think that's right, Mr. President. We're very much heartened by your leadership to get NATO to rise up to 5%, which means they can take primary responsibility for defense of the continent. But that doesn't mean America is abandoning NATO in Europe. But we could look at where our troops are postured, what makes the most sense for America and our NATO allies.
We have a lot of troops in Europe, as you know, a lot. And we can move them around a little bit. But no, basically we'll be pretty much set. Go ahead, what's your second?
My second question would be, are you planning to impose more sanctions on Russia at this point?
I might, yeah, I might.
Mr. President, your 20-point plan says we will encourage people to stay. Can you confirm that as Gaza is rebuilt, that no one will be forced to leave?
Yeah, nobody's going to be forced to leave. No, it's just the opposite. This is a great plan. This is a great peace plan. This is a plan that was supported by everybody. I mean, as I said, they're dancing in the streets of many, many countries right now. It's amazing. I've never seen anything like it. No, we're not looking to do that at all.
Mr. President, do you think that we can see a full withdrawal?
Mr. President, can you cut through the politics on the shutdown? We had another failed vote today. Can you speak to our viewers from Orlando to Sacramento? What's your message to some of these families tonight facing missed paychecks, potential layoffs, and missed benefits due to the shutdown?
Yeah, I blame the Democrats. They ought to call their local Democrat representative, whether it's a senator or a congressman, and it's their fault. I mean, they admit it's their fault. They campaigned on the fact that they'd never shut down the country, but they want to shut it down. And, we have the greatest economy. We're the hottest country in the world right now. I think you'd admit that. The hottest country. We went from a dead country a year ago to the hottest country in the world. So I think they probably don't like that. But we're doing great. I mean, we're doing great. I would say my message is call your local representative, congressman or senator, and tell them to get on the ball. The Democrats have caused this problem.
Can I ask one more question? Congressman
Yeah,
Randy
please.
Fine.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Where are you from?
I'm from Finland.
I love it. It's so nice. Uh-oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go with a killer question.
I would like to circle back to the icebreaker deal. So Finland and the U.S. are strengthening their economic partnership through the deal. What other areas of cooperation with Finland do you see as possible at this moment?
Good question. We're going to be talking about that in a little while. We're going into the next door room, commonly known as the cabinet room, beautiful room, and we're going to be discussing that. But we'll be doing other things. It's a wonderful country with wonderful people. We've had a long-term relationship, but it's never been as close as it is now. We'll be doing other things. Go ahead.
I mean, we've been talking about a lot with the president. I mean, the two specific fields where I think Finland has strength. One is quantum and quantum computing, and we know that that is basically what gives food for thought for artificial intelligence. That's very important. The second one is actually networks. And you know that there are two sort of safe and trustworthy Western networks right now. One of them is Nokia. And the other one is Ericsson. And actually 70% of all broadband in the United States is Nokia. So one of the things that we could work on together is creating the 6G space through networks. And Nokia has 7,000 people working here in the United States and an American CEO.
Okay, anybody else?
Mr. President.
What is the international stabilization force that's going to deploy to Gaza? What is that going to look like?
To be determined, really I think there's going to be a large group of people determining what it will be, and a group of people funding it that are very rich countries are going to be funding it. People want to see this work. It's going to work. It's absolutely going to work. and it starts. It's already started. We've signed, as you know. Everybody's agreed. I think Monday is going to be a very big day, Monday, Tuesday, but it's going to be, depending on where you are, it's going to be a very big day. I think it's going to be a day of great celebration. I've never seen anything like it. The streets of so many countries right now, they're just roaring with love and with praise for the people that did this. And these are countries that did this. The whole world came together for this, even Iran. And I really thank them for it. Iran came out and said this is a good thing. This is a very good thing. So it was terrific. It's been a terrific experience for me. Thank you very much, everybody.
And that was President Trump speaking with the Finnish president at the Oval Office, taking reporter questions on a range of topics, including the Gaza peace deal, the war in Ukraine, and about President Trump's physical tomorrow, which President Trump said that he took a cognitive test earlier, which he got a perfect score in. All right, moving on. In the red, nearly $2 trillion again for the U.S. government. The Congressional Budget Office has released new data for the 2025 fiscal year. It shows the federal government has posted a $1.8 trillion budget deficit for the second straight year. This is despite a rise in tariff revenues. The monthly budget review confirmed customs duties increased by more than 150% for a total of $195 billion. Overall, the CBO reports that revenues rose by $308 billion. At the same time, spending advanced by $301 billion. The latest Federal Reserve meeting minutes show that members expected 2 to 3 25 basis point rate cuts by the end of the year. Joining us to discuss is Dan Baroni, the CEO of Potomac Core Consulting and author of the upcoming book, Rethinking Economic Growth, How Small Businesses Can Help Consistently Grow the Economy. So first of all, good afternoon to you, Dan. What do you make of the pace of rate cuts? Is it aggressive, too slow, or appropriate in your view?
Great questions. So I think that the pace of rate cuts is way too slow. Just a few weeks ago, I wrote an op-ed article asking for 3 50 basis point cuts for a total of 150 basis point cuts before the end of the year. And the reason why I did that is because I felt imperative that the Fed act far more aggressively because of the rapidly deteriorating labor market. We're seeing job notices, job losses, announcements from companies on a regular basis. The last number we saw, the private jobs numbers, were way down and way off. And I think that there needs to be far more aggressive action by the Federal Reserve sooner rather than later.
Okay, can you talk to us about the labor market a bit more? How severe is this softening, as some would describe it? Is it very concerning in your view?
It's absolutely concerning. So when you look at since 2022, 1.1 million jobs have been eroded from the job market. And part of this is because we've not been able to get accurate data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Otherwise, we would have known this sooner. There's considerable softening in the jobs market. And the reason why I think the Fed needs to move faster is as follows. So in the United States, we're a 70% consumer-driven economy. If you've got people out of work, that's going to hurt the economy. The economy will take a significant hit. So the jobs numbers tell us that there are serious problems, and it runs across multiple sectors, and it needs to be addressed through very aggressive Federal Reserve rate cuts.
And, of course, we cannot talk about the labor market without talking about small businesses, right? They employ a large percentage of all Americans, and their growth hinges on affordable access to capital, which is, of course, directly tied to interest rates. And I talked about your upcoming book, and I understand it focuses on small businesses. It's called Rethinking Economic Growth, How Small Businesses Can Help Consistently Grow the Economy. So Dan, can you explain for us how higher borrowing costs actually translate into fewer hires, delayed expansions, or even businesses closing?
A great question. So small businesses employ half of the U.S. labor market today. I'll give you another data point. So 99.9% of the companies in the United States today are small businesses. Small businesses create 2 out of 3 private sector jobs. It's imperative that small businesses have the tools and resources they need to employ new workers. So for high cost of capital, that will prevent workers from taking advantage of the new big, beautiful law. As you know, there's 100% expensing for plants and equipment. And while access to capital has improved, the cost of capital on a relative basis is still too high. If we bring interest rates down a little further, that will make it more affordable for small businesses to take out those loans. They'll be able to invest in new plants and equipment, and they will do quite a bit of hiring. The fact that they create 2 of 3 new private sector jobs says that if they have a lower cost of capital, they will employ far more workers. Why I am so passionate about this topic is because I see small business as a number of solutions. A solution to addressing the rapidly deteriorating jobs market. I see it as helping to address economic growth. I believe with the footprint of small businesses in the United States, that given the right policy environment and interest rate environment, that small businesses would grow considerably and that the US could grow on a regular basis at 3%.
So Dan, can you explain for us how do interest rates specifically affect small businesses that is different than large corporations?
So for large corporations, have the ability to borrow at higher levels because they have greater resources. For small businesses, they don't have those types of resources. So for example, on average, here in the US, the average small business employs as few as 8 people. They don't have the ability to take out loans at higher rates because it'll cost them more to service their loans. If it costs them more to service their loans, they're not going to invest in new products, new plants, new equipment, or new workers. And that would be a significant hit to job creation and economic growth.
So you're saying that if small businesses have to borrow at higher costs, it might impact economic growth. But isn't that sort of what the Federal Reserve wants, to slow consumption, lower inflation as a result of fewer jobs?
So when you look at the inflation numbers where they are today, on a relative basis, they're far lower than they were during the last administration. They had reached 9.1%. Now they're at around 2.7, 2.8%, and they're considerably lower. And the cost of goods are far lower than they were. So on a real-time basis, inflation is stabilized. And I think that when we think of the Federal Reserve and the opportunity to give small businesses to invest and to hire, the opportunity is here and now. And more importantly, if the labor market continues to deteriorate at the current pace, we could move into serious economic times here in the United States. And the way to avoid that is by lowering those interest rates, giving small businesses a lower cost of capital, giving them the ability to invest.
And we can potentially go into this negative feedback loop, right? Because sustained higher rates could create slower small business growth, which leads to weaker hiring, right? As you mentioned, which then depresses spending further, and then the loop just goes on and on.
The economy will get worse. It will spiral well into negative territory. Here's what I learned in writing my book. So there are 12 case studies in my book, 12 different industries. What I learned is that when small business does well, the overall economy is doing well. That's why the Federal Reserve must lower the interest rates and help reduce the cost of borrowing. Because if they do that, we are going to reverse what could be a further downward spiral in the labor market.
Do you think the Federal Reserve is considering small businesses into their policy decisions?
That's a really good question. I just got a survey in the last week or so from the Federal Reserve, from the Cleveland Federal Reserve, asking me about small business borrowing. I think they're far more attuned than they have been in prior years to small business, because they understand that small business isn't just a part of the economy. Small business is the economy.
Okay, Dan, just one last question. I'm wondering here if you have any tips at all. In a high rate environment, what strategies potentially can small businesses use to survive and grow?
Well, what was interesting in my 50 hours of interviews for my book is that small businesses do a great job helping and supporting each other in local communities. If there are ways they need to do things less expensively, they do that. I would first say that. The second thing that I would say is that I noted in my book that small businesses have already begun to make investments in technology. They have found ways, and they're looking for ways to operate less expensively. So they've got the local magnifier effect. They're operating less expensively with technology, and they're innovating all the time. What I was most impressed by in the research for my book and my interviews is the extent to which these entrepreneurs found new and different ways to operate leaner, more efficiently, and come up with new ideas to sell more product and be more profitable.
Well, Dan, it was really great to talk to you today. Thank you for sharing your comments. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
The Trump administration says it has imposed sanctions on over 50 individuals, entities, and vessels for propping up Iran's oil and gas industry. A Chinese refinery and terminal was among those targeted. The Treasury Department sanctioned the Shandong Jincheng Petrochemical Group. The U.S. says the company has purchased millions of barrels of Iranian oil since 2023. The State Department said the U.S. also targeted a China-based terminal for the first time for receiving Iranian petrochemical products. The U.S. often refers to Iran's sanction-evading oil network as its shadow fleet. U.S. intelligence officials say the fleet helps Tehran fund its nuclear program and support militant proxies throughout the Middle East. The State Department has fired a U.S. diplomat for secretly having a romantic relationship with a Chinese woman alleged to have ties to the Chinese Communist Party. The dismissal follows a ban prohibiting American personnel in China and those with security clearances from such relationships. The ban was introduced late last year under the Biden administration. Officials say the diplomat admitted to concealing the relationship. The department says President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio reviewed the case. The department says it is enforcing a zero-tolerance policy to protect national security. Russia is taking partial responsibility for killing 28 civilians on a commercial flight. Tensions between Moscow and the West are rising once again. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pasdar has more.
Russian President Vladimir Putin takes partial responsibility for striking and downing an Azerbaijan Airlines flight in December last year. He blames Ukrainian drones which were near the plane and technical failures in the Russian air defense system.
There was a Ukrainian drone in the sky. We were tracking 3 such drones that crossed the Russian border on the night of the tragedy. The second reason is technical failures of the Russian air defense system itself. The 2 missiles that were fired did not directly hit the plane.
And the European Union sanctions chief says the measures are clearly hurting the Russian economy. Last week, the Group of 7, or G7, agreed to coordinate and intensify sanctions against Moscow. That's by targeting countries that buy Russian oil and thereby enable sanction circumventions.
All the indicators in the Russian economy are flashing red. Russia is struggling economically. They're running out of money. They are struggling with high interest rates, high inflation, with a squeezed labor market, companies being forced to take bad loans by the government to finance the war economy. So all of this is indicative of the extent of the pressure Russia is under as a result of our sanctions.
It's not clear yet if the US would support any further sanctions against the Kremlin. Arian Pasdar, NTD News.
According to a Saudi Arabian station, the chief of Hamas in Gaza declared an end to the war today. He also announced the start of a permanent ceasefire. The Hamas leader said he has received guarantees from the U.S. and mediators that the war in Gaza has permanently ended. And joining us now is Gabriel Sanders, spokesperson of Be a Mensch Foundation. Gabriel, thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure to speak to you. Firstly, I want to ask you, what does it mean to finally have agreement in place now that all remaining Israeli hostages will be returned. What does that mean?
Well, what it means is that we can breathe and we can bury and we can embrace and we can celebrate the putting of those people's lives back together again. That's what that means in the short run. In the long run, there are other considerations that we have to look at. This is just a first phase, and the rest of it is still very fuzzy.
Okay, speaking of which, then, can you talk to us? What are the remaining hurdles to permanent peace in Gaza?
Well, you hear a lot of talk right now about the end game. It was just mentioned moments ago of a two-state solution. That is not the end game for Hamas or the Palestinian Authority or much of the Arab world. It's always been stated that they couldn't defeat Israel militarily, but they'll take it in pieces. And that's why I've said, and I've said it on your programming before, the end game is not peace with Israel, but every piece of Israel. And if there were, let's call it a temporary Palestinian state set up in what we call Judea and Samaria, it would become what we call in German Judenrein. Totally, all the Jews would have to be kicked out. So it's not an effort to coexist. It's an effort to co-opt. And that's a problem because we're dealing again, and this is not so well known in the West. You and I have discussed it once before. This is as much a theological conflict as it is ideological and political. And that tends to get left out of here. If people don't read the Hamas charter, which harmonizes very well with the PA charter, then we're missing really big pieces of the subtext underneath all of this. All agreements like this one, according to Hamas, are temporary in nature and not binding. And so we'll see how this one works out. They've lost face and they want to get it back.
So let me ask you this. The Bia Mensch Foundation has been working for the past 11 years to promote tolerance among Jews with extremely different values and lifestyles. Those of secularists and ultra-Orthodox. So how are both groups reacting to the news of reaching this deal?
Well, this is a much-awaited unity that we haven't had, I think, in this degree since October the 8th of 2 years ago. I've said a long time ago as well that this was a unity based on a negative. At the Bia Mensch Foundation, we try to create unity based on a positive, looking for commonality, looking for things that we can agree upon after passing through the hurdles of what we've been disagreeable about. And so that's really, really critical. I think the model that we use, the principles that we exercise, aren't just between religious and non-religious Jews, but also can be applied between peoples as well. Even Arabs and Jews across the world can learn from our four principles of listening to each other, learning from each other, liking each other, and creating a linkage between each other. That's a scalable, transferable model, but it requires an openness on all parties to say, we're not giving up who we are, but we are adopting an identity between us called we. And that's a very precious commodity, very valuable and very vulnerable commodity in a relationship. So I think it's possible to achieve, but only if you have both parties who are equally endorsing the higher values of what real peace is about between peoples.
How has the attack on October 7th and the two-year war that followed impacted these two groups within Jewish communities and in the U.S. specifically?
Okay, so I'll deal with the U.S. part in just a moment. In Israel, we have mass PTSD. I can't even begin to measure it. It's very significant. And the healing that has to happen, the therapy that needs to happen is critical. There have been so many suicides, especially on the part of survivors of the Nova Festival, it goes pretty much unreported, of soldiers who've come out, who've been wounded severely and who've decided to take their own life. There's a lot of pain here, layers of pain that has to be dealt with. So I think the jubilation of recovering the hostages and burying our dead will be helpful, at least in the short run. Now let me jump to your other question. We already are hearing from leftist groups like Jews for Palestine, et cetera, who are saying they're not giving up on their push. They're going to keep pushing for the global intifada. What does that mean? It means that Jews in the streets may not be safe. It certainly means that Jewish students on campuses are not safe, either within their classrooms where there's so much gaslighting going on, or the name calling that's happening across the campuses. That's why I'll just hold it up for just a second. That's why we put out this book called Extreme Trauma, which gives a digest of what happened on October the 7th, but looks even further to the issues of resilience through it and looking for future peace, and giving students especially, not only, but just students especially, talking points that they need. Imagine, Don, you're 18, 19 years old and you're being called baby killer and genocide agent and occupier in your own land that Jews have been living in for over 3,000 years. So they don't know, they don't have the historical literacy to know how to answer these things. So we put that together in this book. That certainly helps. But my concern, I guess, if you were asking me what my overarching view is of all that's going on right now, I would give you 2 words: guardedly optimistic. Guardedly, because every peace agreement that's ever been made has been broken. Okay? So Israel gives up hard assets like land or et cetera, and gets a paper peace. So I'm optimistic because the players in this particular engagement are more numerous. So we've got Arab countries involved, we've got many nations of the world, and I'm grateful for President Trump's leadership in being the quarterback for this play.
So how do you think the feeling is among Jewish communities towards the Israeli government over this peace agreement? As you mentioned, perhaps we should be cautiously optimistic about it.
Well, I think that's part of it. I think there are people that will really get behind Bibi Netanyahu, the prime minister, with newfound enthusiasm and support the initiative to make this really take root. There will be others who, there's a slogan in Israel that says, anybody but Bibi. And I don't know how much that camp will change in recognition of his incredible leadership. It's just phenomenal what he's had to shoulder through all of this. Don't forget, we had a 12-day war not too long ago. There's still always the shadow of Iran. We're still dealing with the Houthis. There's the Hezbollah up in Lebanon. There's still problems with the attacks against the Druze community in Syria, close to our northern border. So there's a lot still he has to deal with. And I think you'll see that, at least for a while, the Jewish people of Israel will be more united than in a long time. I happen to not be there right now. I'm here in New York, and I'm missing being there. But I'm again, guardedly, cautiously optimistic. I would love to be wrong about what my long-term view is of how these things work out. But if we go back and look at take a page from history, we have to be careful.
And I think a number of my guests share that same sentiment from you, Gabriel. I just want you to comment on one more thing, and this is relating to the Israel Knesset officially inviting Trump for an address. What is your reaction to that?
I think it's a great way to recognize a job well done. One of the things I love about the fact is that we have a businessman in the White House and not a diplomat. He's accustomed to knowing what he wants to do and cutting through whatever hurdles are there in his way to get it done. And I think that the leaders in the Knesset and all of my brothers and sisters in Israel deserve the opportunity to say thank you and to stand up and celebrate and give him the applause that he has certainly deservingly won. And I hope that tomorrow, we don't know, but I hope tomorrow we'll find out that he's been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, because if a previous president could get a prize just because of his identity, this president needs a prize because of his accomplishments.
Okay, well, we'll have to wait and see. And of course, we'll be reporting on that. Gabriel, thank you so much for coming on. Always a pleasure to speak with you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.